The alarm on Daeho's console beeped 3 times. He looked up from his repair work and frowned. Something was out there in the empty space near the old station. The scanner showed a large heat signature, but it was fading fast. That meant whatever it was dying. Daeho was a repair engineer for the Galactic Maintenance Guild. His job was simple. He fixed broken equipment on old space stations in the Outer Rim. Nobody else wanted this job because the Outer Rim was far from everything. It was lonely work, but Daeho liked the quiet. He could think here. He could work at his own pace, but right now his peace was broken. The heat signature was getting weaker. Daeho knew he should call it in to his supervisor. That was the rule. But by the time help arrived, whatever was out there would be dead. He made a choice. He grabbed his emergency kit and ran to his small shuttle. The shuttle flew through the darkness. Stars dotted the black sky like tiny diamonds. Daeho's hands gripped the controls as he followed the scanner. The signal led him to a large piece of floating metal, part of the destroyed station. And there, curled against the cold metal, was something he had only seen in pictures. A dragon. Not the tiny lizards from Earth's old stories. This was a real dragon from the Draken Collective. She was massive, even though she was curled up tight. Her scales were deep purple with hints of silver. They looked dull now, not shining like they should. One of her wings was torn badly. Blood had frozen in the cold of space around the wound. Daeho brought his shuttle close. He put on his spacesuit and went outside. The dragon's eyes were closed. For a moment, he thought he was too late. Then he saw her chest move slightly. She was breathing, but barely. He touched her scales gently. They were ice cold. Dragons could survive in space for a while, but not forever. This one had been out here too long. Daeho looked at the torn wing and the frozen blood. Something had hurt her badly. Then he noticed something else. There were burn marks on her side. Not from weapons. These were marks from other dragons. They had burned her with their fire breath. This dragon had been cast out. Left to die, Daeho knew about dragon culture. Everyone in the galaxy knew. Dragons were proud warriors. They valued strength above all else. If a dragon became weak or injured too badly to fight, the clan would abandon them. It was their way. It had been their way for thousands of years. But Daeho was human. Humans had different values. He could not leave her here to die. He worked quickly. His shuttle was small, but he managed to attach magnetic cables to the dragon's body. Slowly, carefully, he pulled her into the cargo bay of his repair ship. It took almost an hour. His arms ached. His back hurt, but he did not stop. Inside the ship, Daeho raised the temperature in the cargo bay. He covered the dragon with thermal blankets. Then he looked at her wounds. The wing was the worst. The membrane was torn in 3 places. Dragons healed fast, but this needed help. Daeho got his medical supplies. They were meant for humans, but he would make them work. He cleaned the wounds carefully. He used a special gel that would help tissue regenerate. Then he wrapped the wing in synthetic bandages that would dissolve as the wing healed. The burn marks on her side needed attention too. He applied cream to prevent infection. All the while, the dragon did not move. She was unconscious, her body trying to survive. Daeho set up an IV drip with nutrients. Dragons had different biology than humans, but all living things needed certain basics: water, minerals, proteins. He mixed what he hoped was the right combination. Then he sat down next to her and waited. Hours passed. Daeho checked her vital signs every 30 minutes. Her temperature was rising slowly. Her breathing became a little stronger. These were good signs. He felt tired but could not sleep. What would happen when she woke up? Dragons were dangerous. This one might be angry. She might attack him. But Daeho had made his choice. He would deal with whatever came next. On the second day, the dragon's eyes opened. They were golden, like the sun. For a long moment, she just stared at the ceiling. Then her head turned slowly, and those golden eyes found Daeho. He stood still, his heart beating fast. The dragon tried to move, but groaned in pain. Her wing was still healing. She spoke. Her voice was rough, like gravel grinding together. But Daeho understood. Dragons and humans shared a common trade language. Her words were simple and filled with confusion. Why am I alive? Daeho stepped closer carefully. He kept his hands visible and open. No weapons, no threat. He said, I found you. You were dying. I brought you here and fixed your wounds. The dragon's eyes narrowed. You are human. Yes, why did you save me? My clan left me to die. That is our way. I am weak. I do not deserve to live. The words hit Deho hard. This powerful creature, this dragon who could probably tear his ship apart with her claws, believed she did not deserve to live. He shook his head. He said, "That is not my way. Humans believe every life has value. You were hurt and needed help. So I helped you." The dragon stared at him for a long time. She seemed to be thinking hard about his words. Finally, she spoke again. "What is your name, human?" "Deho, I am Hyejin. I have lived for 160 years. I was a warrior of the Dragon Collective. I fought in 12 wars. I have killed enemies in battle. I earned respect." She paused and her voice became bitter. "Then I was injured in the last battle. My wing was damaged. I could not fly fast enough anymore. I could not fight as I once did. My clan marked me with fire and left me in space. That is the law of my people." Deho sat down on a crate nearby. He wanted to understand. He asked, "Do all injured dragons get abandoned?" "Yes, if you cannot fight, you cannot serve the clan. If you cannot serve, you are a burden. Burdens must be removed. It keeps the clan strong." Hyejin said this as if it was obvious, as if there was no other way. Deho felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. He said, "Humans do things differently. When someone is hurt, we help them heal. When someone is old, we care for them. We learn from those who came before us. Their experience makes us stronger, not weaker." Hyejin tilted her head. The concept seemed strange to her. She asked, "But what about warriors who cannot fight anymore? What do?" "They teach. They guide. They share their knowledge. They live with honor and respect until their natural end," Deho explained. He could see she was thinking about this. Hyejin was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that surprised him. "Your way sounds kind, but kindness is weakness. That is what we are taught." "Maybe," Deho said. "Or maybe real strength is choosing to be kind even when it is hard. You are still alive because I chose kindness. Does that make me weak?" The dragon had no answer for that. She closed her eyes, tired from talking. Deho stood up and checked her bandages. The wing was healing, but it would take time. He made sure she had food and water nearby. Then he went back to his workstation. As he sat there, looking at the stars through the window, Deho wondered what would happen next. He had saved a dragon's life. He had challenged her beliefs. He did not know if this would lead to something good or something terrible. But he knew one thing for certain. Everything had changed the moment he decided not to leave Hyejin to die alone in the cold darkness of space. Hyejin flew through the void for 3 days before she reached the outer edge of dragon territory. Her enhanced wing worked perfectly. She could fly faster and longer than she had in years. But her heart was heavy with uncertainty. What would she find when she returned? Would anyone listen to her? The Draken Collective lived on a series of asteroid colonies. These rocks had been hollowed out and connected by massive tunnels. Dragons did not need planets. They could survive in space for long periods. The asteroids gave them places to rest, to raise young, to store treasures from battles. When Hyejin arrived at the main colony, guards immediately surrounded her. They recognized her marks, the burn scars that meant banishment. One young guard named Bora stared at her in shock. Bora said, "You should be dead. How are you here?" Hyejin held her head high. She said, "I was saved by a human. He healed my wounds and gave me the ability to fly again. I have returned to share what I learned." The guards looked at each other with confusion and anger. Another guard, older and scarred from many battles, growled, "You were marked for death. You dare return? This is against our law." "I know the law," Hyejin said calmly. "But I also know there may be a better way. I wish to speak to Elder Taeyang. I have important information about humans that the clan should hear." The guards did not know what to do. This had never happened before. Banished dragons did not return. They died in space or found death in battle far away. Finally, they agreed to take her to the Elder, but they kept their weapons ready. Hyejin was still considered an outcast. Elder Taeyang was ancient. He had lived for 300 years, far longer than most dragons. His scales were deep red with streaks of black. His eyes were like burning coals. He sat on a throne carved from a meteorite. When Hyejin entered the great chamber, his eyes fixed on her with cold fury. "You dare show your face here?" Taeyang's voice boomed through the chamber. "You were cast out. You were weak. The clan decided your fate." Hyejin bowed respectfully but did not lower her gaze. She said, "Elder, I was weak. I accepted my fate. But a human saved me. He showed me that weakness can become strength with help. He showed me compassion. He gave me new technology that restored my ability to fly. I have learned things about humans that our people need to understand." Taeyang laughed. It was a harsh, mocking sound. He said, "Humans are soft. They are weak creatures who build machines because their bodies are pathetic. You have been infected by their weakness. You speak of compassion as if it is a virtue. Compassion is for the feeble. Is it weak to save a life?" Hyejin asked. "Is it weak to share knowledge? Humans help each other. They grow stronger together. Perhaps that is why they have spread across the galaxy while we remain in our asteroids." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Other dragons watched the exchange. Some looked angry, but Bora and a few other young dragons looked thoughtful. They had heard stories about humans, stories of their strange customs and powerful technology. Maybe there was something to learn. Taeyang stood up, his massive form towering over Hyejin. He said, "You are corrupted. You have been poisoned by human ideas. I declare you permanently exiled. If you do not leave immediately, you will be executed." Hyejin had expected this, but she had to try. She bowed again and said, "I will leave. But know this, Elder, change is coming. Other species evolve and adapt. If we do not, we will be left behind." She turned and flew out of the chamber. As she left, Bora watched her go with troubled eyes. That night, Bora could not sleep. She kept thinking about Hyejin's words, about humans and their strange ways, about compassion and strength. 2 months later, disaster struck. A plague swept through one of the outer dragon colonies. It was a disease that attacked the respiratory system. Young and healthy dragons fought it off easily. But older dragons and those with existing injuries became very sick. Many were dying. According to dragon law, the sick should be quarantined and left to survive or die on their own. Resources could not be wasted on those who could not fight. Elder Taeyang ordered the sick colony sealed. No help would be sent. This was the way. But Bora could not accept this. She had been thinking about Hyejin's words for weeks. Now she saw dragons suffering needlessly. Dragons who had fought bravely in wars. Dragons who had knowledge and experience. They were being left to die simply because they had become sick. Bora found a way to contact Hyejin. She sent a message through the communication networks that connected the outer colonies. The message was simple. Help needed. Plague killing our people. Elder refuses aid. Hyejin received the message while she was visiting a trading station. She immediately knew what she had to do. She contacted Daeho. She explained the situation. She asked if humans would help dragons, even though dragons had never helped humans. Daeho did not hesitate. He said, "Of course we will help. That is what humans do." He contacted the Galactic Medical Corps, a human organization that provided emergency medical aid across the galaxy. Within 2 days, a medical ship arrived at the infected colony. The ship brought 2 doctors, Jiwon and Kyung-suk, along with nurses and medical supplies. Daeho came too, flying his repair ship alongside them. Dr. Jiwon was a specialist in alien biology. She had treated many different species. When she saw the sick dragons, she immediately started taking samples. She analyzed the plague. It was a bacterial infection that was rare but treatable. Humans had antibiotics that could fight it. Dr. Kyung-suk worked on adapting the antibiotics for dragon physiology. It took her 6 hours of intense work. She adjusted dosages and added supplements to protect dragon organs from side effects. Finally, she had a treatment that should work. The medical team went from dragon to dragon administering the medicine. Many dragons were too weak to protest. Others stared in amazement as humans worked tirelessly to save them. Jiwon did not sleep for 30 hours. She just kept working, kept treating patients, kept checking on their progress. Within 3 days, the plague was under control. Dragons who had been near death were sitting up. Their breathing was clear. Their strength was returning. The colony was saved. News spread quickly through the Draken Collective. Humans had saved an entire colony. They had not asked for payment. They had not demanded an alliance. They had just helped because it was the right thing to do. Elder Taeyang was forced to acknowledge what had happened. A delegation of humans stood before him in the great chamber. Jiwon spoke for the group. She said, "We came because lives were in danger. Our species may be different, but suffering is universal. We believe in helping those who need help." Taeyang looked at these small humans who had done what his own people refused to do. He saw the grateful dragons who had been saved. He saw Bora and other young dragons watching him, waiting to see how he would respond. For the first time in his long life, Elder Tae Yang felt something he had never felt before. Shame. His people had abandoned their own. Strangers had shown more honor than he had. He said slowly, "You have done what we would not. You have shown strength in a way I did not understand. Perhaps there is merit in your ways." It was not a full acceptance. It was not an apology. But it was acknowledgement, and for dragons that was significant. Yijin stood at the back of the chamber watching. She caught Daeho's eye and nodded slightly. This was just the beginning. Change would not come quickly to the dragons. Their culture was ancient and deeply rooted. But a seed had been planted. The rigid foundation of dragon society had its first crack. As the humans prepared to leave, many dragons came to thank them. Young dragons especially. Bora approached Jiwon and said, "You saved my grandmother. She fought in 20 battles. She has so much knowledge. I was told she should die because she was weak. But you showed me she is worth saving. Thank you." Jiwon smiled and touched the young dragon's claw gently. She said, "Every life has value. Remember that." Those simple words would echo through dragon society for years to come. Every life has value. It was a revolutionary idea for a culture that had always measured worth by combat ability. But now dragons had seen proof. They had seen humans risk themselves to save strangers. They had seen compassion in action. And some of them, especially the young ones, wanted to learn more. 6 months after the plague incident, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The council was made up of representatives from all major species in the galaxy. It met only when important matters affecting multiple species needed discussion. This time, the topic was dragon culture and its clash with broader galactic values. The session was held on a neutral space station orbiting a white dwarf star. Hundreds of delegates filled the Great Hall. Humans, dragons, and dozens of other species all gathered. The tension was thick. Everyone knew this could go badly. Ambassador Young Min represented humanity. He was a veteran diplomat who had negotiated treaties with 7 different species. He was known for his calm demeanor and careful words. But this situation was delicate. He had to argue for change without being seen as attacking dragon culture. That could start a war. Elder Taeyang came to defend dragon traditions. He brought several other elders with him. They sat in the dragon section of the hall, their massive forms taking up considerable space. Taeyang's eyes burned with pride and defiance. He would not let his culture be judged by outsiders, but there was a surprise. Haya-Jen was also there. She had been invited to testify. She sat with the human delegation, her enhanced wing gleaming under the lights. Many dragons stared at her with mixed emotions, some with anger, others with curiosity. The council head, a being from a crystalline species called the Lumerians, opened the session. Her voice rang out clear and neutral. She said, "We gather to discuss the practice of abandoning injured or elderly members within dragon society. This practice has drawn attention after recent events. We must decide if intervention is appropriate or if cultural sovereignty must be respected." Elder Tae Yang was given the floor first. He stood, and his presence dominated the hall. He spoke with the authority of 3 centuries of life. He said, "Our ways are ancient. For thousands of years, dragons have thrived by embracing strength and rejecting weakness. We do not coddle the feeble. We do not waste resources on those who cannot contribute. This makes us powerful. This makes us respected. You ask us to change, but you do not understand. Our culture is who we are." Many delegates nodded. Cultural sovereignty was important. The galaxy was diverse. Different species had different values. Who had the right to say one way was better than another? Then Ambassador Young Min spoke. He did not attack. He did not accuse. He simply presented facts. He said, "Humans once believed might made right. We had wars. We had suffering. But we learned that cooperation makes us stronger than competition. We learned that caring for all our people, not just the strong, builds a better society. We do not ask dragons to abandon their identity. We ask them to consider if there might be strength and compassion." He continued, "Dragons are formidable warriors. Nobody questions their power. But power without wisdom is dangerous. Humans offer partnership. We offer medical knowledge. We offer technology. Not to make dragons weak, but to make them more resilient. An injured warrior who is healed can fight again. An elder who shares knowledge makes younger warriors better. This is not weakness. This is practical strength. The hall was quiet. Young Min had made his point without insulting anyone. He had framed change as evolution, not submission. Then Heejin was called to testify. She walked to the center of the hall. Every eye was on her. She felt the weight of the moment. What she said now could shape the future for her entire species. She began to speak. Her voice was steady and clear. She said, I am Heejin. I lived as a dragon warrior for 160 years. I fought with honor. I earned my place in the clan. Then I was injured. According to our law, I was abandoned to die. I accepted this. I believed I deserved death because I was weak. She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she continued, but a human found me. Daeho, an engineer, saved my life. He did not know me. He gained nothing from helping me, but he could not let me die. He healed my wounds. He created technology to restore my ability to fly. He gave me back my life. Heejin spread her wings, showing the biomechanical enhancement. She said, this device is human innovation. It works with my body, not against it. I can fly as well as I did before my injury. Perhaps better. If I had died as our law demanded, this would not be possible. My experience, my knowledge, my strength would be lost forever. She looked directly at Elder Tae Yang. She said, I do not ask us to abandon being dragons. I ask us to stop throwing away our people when they could still contribute. I ask us to be wise, not just strong. The human way is not perfect, but it has merit. They helped us during the plague. They asked for nothing in return. They showed us that mercy and power can coexist. The hall erupted in discussion. Delegates argued among themselves. Some supported Heejin. Others worried about interfering with dragon sovereignty. The debate went on for hours. Finally, the council head called for order. She said, we have heard testimony from all sides. Now we must decide. Should the Galactic Council take a position on this matter? A vote was taken. The result was close but clear. The council ruled that cultural practices must be respected, but the right to seek aid from other species could not be restricted. Dragons were free to maintain their traditions, but individual dragons could also choose to accept help from humans or other species. The collective could not punish dragons for seeking medical treatment or technological assistance. It was a compromise. Not perfect, but workable. Elder Tae Yang stood slowly. He looked around the hall, then he looked at Heejin. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Finally, Tae Yang said, the council has spoken. We will respect this decision. But know this, dragons who seek outside help are choosing a different path. They may not return to traditional clan life. That is our right to decide. It was not acceptance, but it was not war either. The door was open for change, even if it was only a crack. After the session ended, a group of young dragons approached Heejin. Bora was among them. She said, we want to learn more about human ways. We want to see if there is a middle path. Can we be strong warriors and also show compassion? Can we honor our traditions while also embracing new ideas? Heejin felt hope bloom in her chest. She said, I believe we can, but it will not be easy. Our elders will resist. Some of our people will never accept change. But for those who are willing to try, I will help. Ambassador Youngmin joined them. He said, humanity offers support. We can provide medical training. We can share technology. We can create exchange programs where young dragons learn from humans and vice versa. But this must be a partnership, not one side teaching the other. We have much to learn from dragon culture as well. Bora nodded eagerly. She said, yes, we do not want to become human. We want to become better dragons. We want to keep our strength, our honor, our warrior spirit. But we also want to care for our injured. We want to value our elders. We want to build a culture that is both fierce and kind. The young dragons formed a group. They called themselves the New Wing. It was a symbolic name. Just as Heejin had received a new wing that let her fly again, they wanted to give dragon culture a new wing to lift it higher. Not all dragons joined. Many stayed with the traditional ways. Elder Tae Yang and his followers maintained the old colonies. They continued to practice abandonment of the weak. They saw the new wing as corrupted. As traitors to dragon identity, the Draken collective split ideologically. There was tension. Sometimes there were fights. But there was no all-out war. Both sides knew that would destroy them all. Instead, an uneasy coexistence formed. Traditional dragons kept to themselves. Progressive dragons began working with humans and other species. Hye-jin met with Daeho after the council session. They sat together on an observation deck watching stars drift by. Daeho said, "You did well in there. Your testimony was powerful." Hye-jin sighed. She said, "I sparked change, but I also created division among my people. Some will never forgive me." "Change always creates division at first," Daeho said gently. "But look at the young dragons who followed you. Look at Bora and the others. They represent the future. The old ways will fade eventually. Your people will remember you as the one who gave them choice." Hye-jin looked at her friend. This small human who had changed her life. She said, "You gave me more than a new wing. You gave me a new perspective. You showed me that there are many kinds of strength." "Thank you, Daeho." He smiled and said, "You would have figured it out eventually. I just happened to be there at the right time." They sat in comfortable silence watching the stars. Both knew that what came next would be challenging. Building a new culture while respecting the old was hard work. But it was possible. They had proven that. One human engineer and one abandoned dragon had started something that would ripple through the galaxy for generations to come. 3 weeks passed on the repair ship. Daeho watched as Hye-jin slowly got stronger. Her wing was healing well. The tears in the membrane had closed. New tissue was growing. The burns on her side were fading to pale scars. But the biggest change was not in her body. It was in how she looked at the world. At first, Hye-jin had been suspicious of everything. She watched Daeho carefully when he brought her food. She questioned why he helped her. She seemed to be waiting for him to ask for something in return. But Daeho never asked for anything. He just did his repair work and took care of her wounds. He talked to her sometimes, but he did not push. One evening, Hye-jin asked him about human history. Daeho was surprised. He sat down with a cup of tea and began to talk. He told her about old Earth before humans went to space. He explained how humans had built civilizations, how they had families, how they took care of their old and sick. Hye-jin listened with her golden eyes fixed on him. She asked, "But did this not make you weak? If you keep the weak alive, they consume resources. They cannot fight. They cannot work." Daeho shook his head. He said, "The old and injured taught the young. They shared wisdom. They told stories of mistakes to avoid. A warrior who cannot fight anymore can still teach others how to fight better. A scientist who is sick can still share knowledge. We grew stronger together, not by throwing people away." The dragon was quiet. She seemed to be turning these ideas over in her mind like strange stones. Finally, she said, "My clan never spoke of such things. We only valued combat, battle prowess, speed and strength. What about dragon elders? Do they not teach the young?" Daeho asked. "There are no dragon elders," Hye-jin said simply. "Dragons who become too old to fight die in battle. That is considered honorable. Or they leave on their own to die alone. I am 160 years old. Most dragons do not live past 200. I would have had maybe 40 more years. Now those years were taken from me." The sadness in her voice made Daeho's heart hurt. He said, "You still have those years. You are alive. Your wing is healing. Maybe it will not be exactly as it was, but you can fly again." Hye-jin looked at her bandaged wing. She flexed it slightly, testing the muscles. Pain crossed her face, but the wing moved. She said quietly, "Even if I can fly, I cannot return to my clan. I am marked, banished. There is no place for me there." "Then make a new place," Daeho suggested. "Humans do not always stay where they were born. We explore. We find new homes. We build new lives." This idea seemed to confuse Hye-jin. Dragons were clan creatures. They stayed with their birth clan or died. The thought of existing outside the clan structure was alien to her. But something in Daeho's words made her wonder. What if there was another way? Days turned into weeks. Daeho spent his free time researching dragon biology on his computer. He studied their anatomy, their nervous system, the way their wings worked. He learned that dragon wings were incredibly complex. They had muscles that could adjust for different speeds and maneuvers. But Hye-jin's injury had damaged some of those muscles permanently. One night, Daeho had an idea. He was an engineer. He solved problems. Maybe he could not fix the damaged muscles perfectly, but he could enhance them. Human technology had developed biomechanical implants for injured people. These implants worked with the body, helping damaged parts function better. What if he could adapt that technology for a dragon? He spent 3 days designing a prototype. It was a small device that would attach to the wing bones and muscles. It would read the signals from Hyejin's nervous system and provide extra support to the damaged areas. The device would be powered by her own body heat. It would not replace her natural ability. It would just help the weak parts work better. When Daeho showed Hyejin the design, she stared at the holographic display for a long time. She asked, "This would let me fly at combat speed again?" "I think so. Maybe not exactly like before, but close. You would need to train with it. Learn how it feels. But yes, you could fly properly again." Hyejin's eyes became bright. Hope. That was the emotion Daeho saw on her face. Hope was something she had not felt in a long time. She said, "My people would never think of such a solution. We accept our fate. We do not try to change it. Humans always try to change things," Daeho said with a small smile. "Sometimes it gets us in trouble, but sometimes it leads to something good." The surgery took 6 hours. Daeho had to work carefully. Dragon biology was different from human biology. Their bones were denser. Their tissues healed faster but were also more sensitive. He made tiny incisions and attached the biomechanical supports to the wing structure. The device bonded with her scales and muscles. When it was done, Daeho stepped back and hoped it would work. Hyejin woke up slowly. She felt the new weight in her wing. It was strange but not painful. Daeho helped her stand. He said, "Try to move it gently." Hyejin spread her wings. The left one moved smoothly. The right one, the injured one, moved too. There was no pain, no weakness. The biomechanical support was working with her muscles, amplifying the signals from her nerves. She flapped both wings experimentally. A gust of wind filled the cargo bay. Equipment rattled. Tears formed in Hyejin's golden eyes. She said, "I can feel it. The strength is back." "How is this possible?" "Human innovation," Daeho said. "We believe problems can be solved. We do not just accept things as they are." Over the next week, Hyejin practiced flying in the large cargo bay. At first, she was clumsy. The enhanced wing felt different. But she was a warrior. She had trained for over a century. She learned quickly. Soon she was flying in tight circles, diving and rising with precision. The biomechanical enhancement worked perfectly. One evening, Hyejin landed in front of Daeho. She lowered her head, a gesture of deep respect among dragons. She said, "You have given me back my life. More than that, you have given me something my own people never did. You gave me hope. You showed me that change is possible. I do not know how to repay such a gift." Daeho reached out and touched her scales gently. He said, "You do not owe me anything. I helped you because it was the right thing to do. But if you want to repay me, then live, fly, be happy. That is enough." Hyejin felt something break inside her chest. Not break like damage. Break like a wall crumbling. For her entire life, she had been taught that everything had a price. Every action required payment. Every debt must be settled. But here was this human who wanted nothing in return, who helped simply because he believed it was right. Gratitude. That was the word for what she felt. Pure, deep gratitude. It was an emotion dragons rarely experienced because they rarely helped each other without expecting something back. News of what happened began to spread through the outer rim. Smugglers and traders talked. They shared stories of the human engineer who saved a dragon. Some thought it was foolish. Dragons were dangerous. They were proud and often cruel. Why risk helping one? But others were curious. If a human could show such kindness to a dragon, what else was possible? In the dragon territories, word also spread. Young dragons heard the tale and whispered about it. A human had saved one of their kind. Not for profit, not for alliance, just because he believed it was right. Some dragons were angry. They said Hyejin should have died with honor. But other dragons, especially the younger ones, began to question, why did their people abandon the injured? Was that truly the only way? Daeho and Hyejin did not know how much their meeting would change things. They only knew that a bond had formed between them. A friendship that crossed species and culture. Daeho had taught Hyejin about compassion. Hyejin had taught Daeho about dragon honor and pride. Both had learned that understanding between different peoples was possible. As Hyejin prepared to leave the repair ship, she turned to Daeho one last time. She said, "Where I go now, I do not know. I cannot return to my clan, but I will not hide. I will show them that your way has merit. That compassion is not weakness. Perhaps I will fail. Perhaps they will kill me, but I must try." Daeho nodded. He understood. She needed to do this. He said, "Be careful. And remember, you always have a friend out here. If you need help, find me." Hyejin spread her wings. The biomechanical enhancement gleamed in the ship's lights. She flew out of the cargo bay and into space. Daeho watched her go, a purple and silver shape against the stars. He did not know if he would ever see her again. But he knew their meeting had mattered. It had changed both of them. And sometimes that was enough to change the world. 5 years had passed since the Galactic Council session. The changes that started with one rescued dragon had grown into something much bigger. A new settlement called New Haven had been established on a frontier world at the edge of explored space. It was a joint colony. Humans and progressive dragons lived there together, building something unprecedented. The planet itself was beautiful. Red sand stretched across vast deserts. Blue oceans covered half the surface. Mountains rose high into the thin atmosphere. It was a harsh world, but that made it perfect. Both humans and dragons were tough species. They thrived on challenges. Hyejin had become the chief liaison between the two species. She spent her days helping dragons and humans understand each other. It was not always easy. Cultural differences caused friction. Dragons were naturally aggressive. Humans sometimes seemed too soft. But Hyejin knew both perspectives now. She could bridge the gap. Her biomechanical wing had become a symbol. Young dragons who came to New Haven often asked about it. She would explain how a human saved her life, how technology and compassion combined to give her a second chance. Many of these young dragons then chose to get similar enhancements, not because they were injured, but because they saw the value in human-dragon collaboration. Daeho had settled on New Haven too. He established a workshop where he trained both humans and dragons in advanced engineering. It was fascinating work. Dragons had incredible spatial awareness and could work in conditions that would kill humans. Humans had fine motor control and could handle delicate circuitry. Together they created technology neither species could build alone. Bo-Ra had grown into a leader of the New Wing movement. She was no longer the uncertain young dragon who had watched Hyejin leave the colony. Now she commanded respect. She trained other dragons in combat techniques while also teaching them about mercy and compassion. She proved that warriors could be fierce and kind at the same time. One afternoon, Bo-Ra sparred with a human soldier named Tai Min. He was a martial arts expert who had learned to adapt his techniques for fighting larger opponents. They circled each other in the training arena. Bo-Ra lunged, claws extended. Tai Min rolled aside and struck at her leg joint. She roared and swept her tail. He jumped over it and landed on her back. The match ended with both exhausted and laughing. Bo-Ra said, "You humans are tricky, small but clever." Tai Min grinned and said, "And you dragons are powerful but sometimes too direct. We learn from each other." This was the essence of New Haven: mutual learning, mutual respect. Both species contributing their strengths. Not everyone in the galaxy was happy about New Haven. Traditional dragons saw it as a betrayal. Elder Taeyang had died 2 years ago, but his followers maintained the old ways. They called the progressive dragons weak and corrupted. There were occasional skirmishes between traditional and progressive dragon groups, but full war never broke out. The cost would be too high. Some human colonies were also skeptical. They worried that dragons could not be trusted. Dragons had a reputation for violence. Why risk partnership with such dangerous creatures? But New Haven proved the skeptics wrong year after year. The colony thrived. Crime was low. Production was high. Happiness surveys showed both species were content. Then came the crisis that would test everything they had built. An aggressive empire called the Crawl Dominion had been expanding through the outer territories. The Crawl were insectoid warriors who conquered through overwhelming numbers and brutal tactics. They had destroyed 3 colonies already. Now they were heading toward the sector that contained both dragon territory and human settlements. The Crawl sent a message to both humans and dragons: surrender or be destroyed. They gave 1 month to decide. Emergency meetings were held across human space and dragon colonies. Traditional dragons wanted to fight alone, as they always had. Some human leaders wanted to retreat and fortify core worlds. But the New Haven community had a different idea. Hyejin and Bo-Ra proposed a joint defense force. Dragons would provide aerial combat power. Humans would provide tactical coordination and advanced weapon systems. Together, they could be formidable. Ambassador Young Min, now older but still influential, supported the plan. He argued before the human parliament. He said, We have spent 5 years building bridges with dragons. Now is the time to prove that cooperation is stronger than isolation. The crawl will crush us individually. Together we have a chance, the Parliament voted. It was close, but they approved military cooperation with the dragons. On the dragon side, the decision was harder. Traditional elders argued that accepting human help was dishonorable. But younger dragons, inspired by New Haven's success, pushed back. Finally, even some traditionalists agreed. The crawl threat was too great to face with pride alone. The Joint Defense Force assembled. 2,000 dragons and 5,000 human soldiers. They trained together for 3 weeks, learning each other's tactics. Dragons practiced flying in formations guided by human coordinators. Humans learned to support dragon assault runs with precise artillery. Daiho worked day and night. He designed weapon enhancements for dragons. Railguns that could attach to dragon claws. Shields that generated from biomechanical harnesses. Communication devices that allowed dragons and humans to coordinate in real time during battle. His workshop produced hundreds of these devices. The Crawl fleet arrived exactly 1 month after their ultimatum. 300 warships, dark and menacing. They expected easy conquest. They had faced humans before. They had fought dragon clans before. But they had never faced both working together. The battle began in the asteroid field near dragon territory. Human ships engaged the Crawl fleet with long-range missiles and beam weapons. The Crawl responded with their usual tactics, swarming forward with overwhelming numbers. They thought they could simply overrun the human forces. Then the dragons arrived. 2,000 warriors diving from above, their scales reflecting starlight. They fell upon the Crawl ships like a storm. Dragon fire breath melted through hull plating. Dragon claws equipped with Daiho's railguns punched through shields. The Crawl had never seen anything like it. But the dragons did not just attack randomly. They followed tactical guidance from human commanders. Heejin served as the primary coordinator. She flew through the battle, her enhanced wing letting her maneuver precisely. She relayed human tactical instructions to dragon squadrons. Attack this ship. Fall back from that position. Regroup here. The combination was devastating. Dragon ferocity guided by human strategy. The Crawl fleet tried to adapt, but they could not. Their commanders were used to brute force tactics. They did not know how to counter this blend of raw power and sophisticated coordination. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the Crawl fleet was in retreat. They had lost 150 ships. The Human-Dragon Alliance had lost only 30 vessels and 200 fighters. It was a decisive victory. In the aftermath, humans and dragons celebrated together on New Haven. There was music and food. Dragons performed aerial displays while humans cheered. Bora and Taemin stood together watching the celebration. Bora said, "We did something amazing today. We proved that different species can work as one." Taemin nodded. He said, 5 years ago, this would have been impossible. Now it seems natural. That is real change. Hyejin found Daiho sitting alone on a cliff overlooking the settlement. She landed beside him, folding her wings carefully. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sun set over the red desert. Finally, Hyejin spoke. She said, "Do you remember when you found me? Dying in space? Abandoned?" Daiho smiled. He said, "Of course. How could I forget? You were suspicious of everything. You thought kindness was weakness. I did," Hyejin admitted. "My entire culture taught me that. But you showed me something different. You showed me that helping others is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. Look at what we built because you refused to leave me to die." She gestured at New Haven below them. Thousands of lights twinkled as humans and dragons went about their evening routines. Children played in the streets, both human and young dragons. Mixed patrols walked the perimeter. Workshops hummed with activity. Daiho looked at the settlement with pride. He said, "I just did what seemed right. I could not have known it would lead to all this." "That is the point," Hyejin said. "You did not help me because you knew it would benefit you. You helped because it was right. That is the lesson humans taught dragons. Actions do not always need justification beyond basic decency." They watched as Bora flew overhead, leading a patrol of mixed human and dragon fighters. The new wing movement had grown. Hundreds of young dragons had joined. They embraced the new philosophy. Strength and compassion together. Honor and mercy combined. Not all dragons changed. Traditional colonies still existed. They maintained the old ways. But even they had been affected. After seeing the success of the human-dragon alliance against the Crawl, some traditionalists began to reconsider. Maybe there was merit in cooperation. Maybe change was not always bad. Years from now, historians would look back at this era as a turning point. The moment when dragons began to evolve beyond pure warrior culture. The moment when humans proved that compassion could be practical, not just idealistic.